Welcome to At the Table, the Chicago Sun-Times and WBEZ primary election preview, and look ahead at the Chicago mayoral race. At the Table, brought to you by the Chicago Sun-Times. Digital subscriptions, only $2.49 a month. You get everything in the print newspaper, we call it the e-paper, plus every digital offering. Go to suntimes.com/subscribe. Joining us now is the political panel from the Sun-Times and WBEZ. Tina Sfondeles from the Chicago Sun-Times, Dave McKinney from WBEZ, Dan Mihalopoulos from WBEZ, and Mariah Woelfel from WBEZ. Everybody, we are speaking now as we have some very big political and I suppose maybe business news. And so let's just get to it. Ken Griffin just announced that he's pulling his firms, the Citadel-related firms, out of Illinois, going to Florida. He's threatened this for years, and now today, as we speak, he says he's doing it. Tina, do you think, given the enormous amount of money he dumped into Illinois politics in a lot of races, most particularly the $50 million into the Richard Irvin campaign, do you think we've seen the last of him trying to influence politics in Illinois?
I think he could potentially still try to influence politics in Illinois, just not living in Illinois. He said he's moving to Florida. He is upset, and we learned 3 weeks ago that Irvin is behind. He was seemingly the front runner a couple of months ago. He is upset that this has not worked out for him. He's already had a lot of wins in Illinois. He fought the graduated income tax. So all of the millionaires and billionaires or high earning people have a better tax rate. So he has that. Other than that, I think I was talking to someone today about he had bike paths in Chicago. That's what he did. So he didn't really do a lot of the things that he was fighting for, but beyond the taxes. Like he hated crime, but there's not a lot of initiatives he did to put his money into to try to combat crime. So I do think for now he is done, but we've seen him, give a lot of money in other races as well.
But also he's an enormous local philanthropist too. So if we lose that, but we're talking politics on this show, so we're going to stay with the political thing. So he bankrolled the Aurora mayor's campaign, and Dave and Tina, you two were the main writers on the WBEZ Sun-Times poll. Let's put up the number and show what we found that created such a buzz in the political community. And this is a poll, we took it June 7th and 8th, but it just shows what a come from behind a surge there has been for Darren Bailey, the state senator from downstate Illinois, who comes from the Trump MAGA wing of the Republican Party. If Illinois could succeed, he would be for it. So even if these numbers have changed a little bit, what do you first, Dave, and then Tina, Dan, and Mariah, or we'll see. We can mix it up. We don't have to have everybody say everything on this show because we have so much to cover. Do you think these kind of numbers, Dave, are going to hold? Or are there other factors that may intercede in the closing days of the campaign?
Well, I mean, that move in the numbers there corresponds with this just complete, ad barrage against Irvin, coming from the Democratic Governors Association, coming from Pritzker, Darren Bailey, funded by Dick Uihlein, the Lake Forest businessman. So it's all kind of that effect that has partly driven Irvin down. And I think these numbers, if I would not be surprised if these numbers change where Irvin's numbers continue to drop. I mean, I think that's a possibility here because you just have a sense that, the air is coming out of the balloon entirely in the Irvin campaign. And I think this news with Griffin today just compounds that. And the optics of that are just incredible because you and I don't have $50 million to throw around like that. But the optics of Irvin's main benefactor making such a seismic announcement like this.
He could have waited a few days.
But that's my
point. We are puzzled,
yeah.
Right? Why is the timing what it is now? Mihalopoulos, what do you think?
Look, I can't believe that he would be bluffing about something like this, moving a headquarters of such a big company, a hedge fund, down to Miami from Chicago is not a bluff. But the timing is extremely weird. I mean, we're talking less than a week before Election Day in a state where he's spent tens of millions of dollars with apparently little return on his investment. Now, we're also talking about a guy who is spending money all over the country. He's been the number one donor to Republican causes in this cycle nationally, not just in Illinois. And he's given a lot of money to the governor of Florida, by the way, who's a Republican, Ron DeSantis. But this does reek of saying, you know, I've done my best in Illinois. I'm taking my ball, which is a big one, and I'm going home.
Right.
Yeah.
But what he's, I'm sorry, Mariah.
No, I was going to say it's the timing of it seems like a move of someone who feels a little butthurt to me, or like has a big ball and is taking it home from the
But
playground.
he's taking it home too soon. So,
Yeah.
He's going to, if Irvin tanks, and maybe we could all reconvene here on the morning after the election and analyze who won or lost, for whatever reason, in a sense, it is not a vote of confidence in the man he's bankrolling. So it is puzzling his timing. But let me move on it. You have some indications that other candidates are moving. I've heard of the so-called Sullivan surge. You can explain this to me? Anyone? Dave, Dan,
We can
Tina?
talk about how in our poll that we wrote about, we did notice that Sullivan was ahead in
And
Chicago.
tell everybody, who is he?
Jesse Sullivan is he's originally from Petersburg, downstate. He is a former, not cryptocurrency, some sort of investor.
Yeah,
Thank
in
you.
Finance.
Person, very attractive man. It's true. That's why he's doing well on TV. And that's why he did well in the debates. He wasn't taken very seriously. People had thought that maybe Irvin would try to help him, but chose, that Griffin would have chosen Sullivan instead, but that did not happen. So we are seeing that he has done well in Chicago, which we found to be surprising. There are not a lot of Republicans in Chicago. And so when they're seeing those poll numbers that he's doing better than expected in the collar counties and the city, they started to kind of amp up their television ads in those places, so we could see a boost there.
Right. Remember, it only takes a plurality to win. So all these ads that seem to ennoble the conservatism of Darren Bailey are really tricks by J.B. Pritzker, the governor, with an unlimited amount of money, Democratic Governors Association, because the way they gamed it out, they thought it's better to run against Trumpster Darren Bailey, because J.B. Pritzker did play the Trump hand 4 years ago, and he's really ready to do it again. Is there a backfire potential to this happening?
Of course. What they're playing on here is an eternal question in these sort of situations. It's two different things. One is, who is the candidate that might win the primary because they appeal to a base that is further to the extreme, regardless of which party it is in that primary. And that would appear to be Darren Bailey, assuming that Irvin is sort of the center-right candidate, like his political godfather and the guy who's bankrolled his campaign, the aforementioned Griffin. The other question is, who's the more effective candidate for the Republicans in the general election in a blue state where you literally have to get some Democrats probably to come and vote for you in order to beat a Democratic incumbent who, by the way, spent a record amount of money 4 years ago to become the governor and can spend that kind of money again. So remember, it was $171 million that J.B. Pritzker spent last time. So the $50 million that's gone into the primary, assuming they got Irvin over the line, was just going to be the beginning, right? Bottom line, J.B. Pritzker thinks he would stack up better in a general election against Darren Bailey from Louisville. It's pronounced Louisville, by the way, although it's spelled just like Louisville, Kentucky. It's far away. Yeah, I haven't been there, but I did some research into Darren Bailey and interviewed him a couple years back when he told me he had no plans to run for governor at the beginning of the pandemic, where he was sort of increasing his profile on Fox News and in other conservative media. So you would think that this is a guy that's not going to have a lot of appeal in the Chicago metro area. One of his early efforts to get an ally in the Chicago area turned out to be an activist that we know well from Logan Square, who later was charged with having a role on January 6th at the Capitol riot, the Capitol insurrection. So, I think that's an easier candidate for them to paint as an extremist in the general election, and to convince people, like, where most of the people live in Illinois, he's not one of us. I mean, this is a guy that owns a farm the size of Schaumburg. Well, it's a very different lifestyle. It's a very different part of the state.
He's available. He's shown up. Tina, I know you spent time with him. It kind of shows that when you show up and talk to people, you're a little accessible. With the mayor of Aurora has not been, and you can get people to know you. So here is my question, though, about him. We know, and Tina, you'll be covering, Donald Trump is coming to Quincy on Saturday. You'll be there. And he's there. He endorsed freshman Congresswoman Mary Miller, who is from the downstate town of Oakland. She's in the only Republican on Republican primary in the state against Rodney Davis. So Pritzker endorsed her right off the bat. He's coming to Quincy to now do a get out the vote for her in the days before the election. If Trump plays like usual, he'll get a big crowd. It may not be people from her district, and it may be people, he's near the Iowa-Missouri border. But here is my point. I know, and we've talked about this, Darren Bailey would have loved to have had Trump's endorsement. In a sense, though, if Trump just gets that MAGA Republican turnout in Southern Illinois, guys, doesn't it just raise Darren Bailey's ship whether or not there's a formal endorsement at this point? What do y'all think?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, they have been toying with the fact that this might happen, and it still could happen, I suppose, that Trump could still endorse Bailey. But I think even if he's anywhere near there, if he's on the stage, that would be good for them.
He has the snapshot, gets a shout out.
Yes, he has a picture that he took with him at a fundraiser, which I believe he paid for. But it's featured in a JB Pritzker ad, proving that Darren Bailey is a Trump supporter, so it has been beneficial to him. So it doesn't really matter if he gets it. If he's there, if he can get some attention, it would be good. But a couple of years ago, Bruce Rauner went to a Trump rally in the waiting days of his primary, and he was totally rebuffed. Like, Trump said nothing about him, so you just don't know. You don't know what he's going to do. You don't know if Trump is going to say nothing about Darren Bailey.
So as we watch, here's the pro tip. On Saturday, Tina, and we all, whatever, does he give a shout out to Bailey? Does he really go negative on Rodney Davis?
Right.
Because Rodney Davis, by any yardstick, is a conservative, but he's not a Trumper. So, and then if he even gets Bailey on the stage or some photo, does Bailey have enough money to instantly get ads up, or how would he leverage it?
I mean, this is the problem here. This is an endorsement that would have been a much more valuable thing to people had it happened 3 weeks ago, because then there would have been an ability to get it out on TV and get it in mailboxes and things like that. And, honestly, if you're Darren Bailey looking out at things, I mean, as Tina pointed out, he has that image of him and Trump and the Mar-a-Lago experience. But for a general election, maybe it works to Bailey's advantage somewhat if he can, have just a tiny, tiny little bit of distance from Donald Trump, because that's going to be part of what J.B. Pritzker tries to paint over and over about this man, Darren Bailey.
Hey, not to do totally a pre-autopsy. It sounds harsh. I know everybody of the mayor of Aurora, but did the Irvin people and the political consultants who spawned his, Irvin's candidacy, did they just pick the wrong guy here?
Well, I mean, if you knew that text messages would come out where he's criticizing Trump as a racist, as our friends at WTTW reported, I'm sure that they knew that he had voted Democratic in some other situations. But you take all of this and put it all together, and I think the hard right voters that do exist in this state, in some numbers, albeit a clear minority, really don't think Richard Irvin is what they want when they want somebody like Trump. And so Darren Bailey sort of benefits from that. Some of the other candidates might benefit from that because whether Darren Bailey is endorsed or not officially, I think he's been very open about the fact that he likes Donald Trump, and Richard Irvin has been very sheepish about his approach to Donald Trump.
Let's move on, because one of the big findings in the Sun-Times WBEZ poll was how transformed the Republican Party of Illinois is. What was once a party that was known for electing moderates, even pro-choice moderates, that's long gone. And the point, I guess, to make is that the Illinois Republican Party is pretty now a MAGA Republican Party. We're talking as the January 6th hearings are going on in Congress. Adam Kinzinger is not running again. He didn't have the right district, but it would have been difficult. So on the poll, here's one thing that is so disturbing as we also mesh this with the January 6th committee that's trying to figure out, even in Illinois, we have, if you combine the 18 and the 15% of people who are not sure.
Or 67 and 15.
Yes, do you believe? Yeah, I'm sorry. Hey, everybody, I screwed it up. Thank you, Dave. This is not something to be lightly ignored. So no matter what happens, we are at a political crossroads right now with Trumpism in Illinois. When you look at this, what does this mean for the future of the Republican Party in Illinois? Who wants to take that?
Well, I mean, it's moved farther and farther and farther away from the days of Jim Thompson, Jim Edgar, even George Ryan. And those three governors that we think about as they shared this kind of common profile where they were generally fiscal conservatives. I don't know you'd say that so much about Thompson, but fiscal conservatives, social moderates. And they were able to get out of primaries by being pro-choice. And in this case, what we have now is, that's not the case at all. I mean, Richard Irvin's implosion has partly to do with a disastrous press conference he had in May where he couldn't articulate a position on abortion that made sense to Illinois primary voters. And that is a problem. And we saw signs of how that trend was starting to take shape 4 years ago when Bruce Rauner had a primary against Jeannie Ives, and he went back, if you remember, Lynn, he went back on his promise on abortion, being against abortion. Okay. And that nearly cost him.
And we're speaking as the Supreme Court any day now can hand down the ruling in the closing days of the Supreme Court term that reverses Roe v. Wade. I want to get back to what happened to the state that we knew that this denialism has taken root. Has the people changed? Is this the Trump power? You have some establishment Republicans, even a Ken Griffin, for all of his enormous influence, he spoke out. He did say clearly that Biden won the election, but look how few Republicans have been willing to even publicly back Adam Kinzinger here. You also had a question in the poll. If a candidate for office supported Trump, would that make you more or less likely to vote for that person? Okay, 52% said more likely, which is why, Tina, that visit you're going to cover Saturday, I think is very meaningful when we look at the election results on Tuesday. There's one other thing that's going on in Illinois. We think of us as a blue state, and that's because we have Democratic statewide officials. One of the things, and again, Tina, you reported on this, is how does this intersect with a mainstay of J.B. Pritzker's campaign plan, especially if abortion rights are struck down? He is fashioning himself as the champion of abortion rights with Illinois, in a sense, a mecca. So how does this all calibrate as you look ahead?
Well, just in conversations that I've had over the past week or two, I do feel there's a lot of Republicans who feel like they don't know where they belong. And I think that is going to be a problem in our state and why you might see people veer more to the right. So I do think J.B. Pritzker obviously is a progressive governor, and he's moving even more to the left as he has other political aspirations. So I think that there will potentially be a problem where these people don't know where they belong. They don't agree with these progressive policies. And we could see a rise in more far-right kind of extremism.
Right. Especially if Donald Trump runs for president again. And in the WBEZ Sun-Times poll, in your opinion, should Donald Trump run for president in 2024 or not? And just look at the board here. Yes, 63%. Okay. Anyway, but speaking of president, J.B. Pritzker went to New Hampshire, speak at the New Hampshire Democratic Convention. And boy, these things don't happen by accident. He was on the East Coast helping other candidates, Massachusetts, Maine. and New Hampshire. But, oh, come on, when you keynote a convention, is this a good time for presidential talk to be bubbling up about JB before his own reelection?
Well, I actually was thinking back to the poll, and one thing we didn't mention, I'll let someone else take that question, but on the poll, I think one of the things that was asked of voters was, what demographic of people are most affected by institutional racism in our society? And I just wanted to put that out there because that was an astonishing answer. I feel like it was, I think a third of respondents, said that white people are the largest, affected by racism in our society. And so I think when we talk about like the Illinois Republican Party, being the Trump GOP, you really see like those conspiracy theories that Trump has touted being deeply rooted in ideology.
Okay, shifting the gears.
Yep.
Congress. Big race. Illinois won the race to replace Bobby Rush. I broke some stories in past days about the $1 million in independent expenditures from the cryptocurrency industry to help Jonathan Jackson, whose personal financial disclosure statement has yet to appear in the House files that should have been there a month ago. 17 Democrats are running. Does anyone have a sense? You're on the ground here. I'm in Washington. I've done a lot of reporting on it. Is there anything any of you have seen that you think gives us a clue as to where things are going to be?
I think it's very, very difficult to call this race from the day that Bobby Rush said he was going to retire. And he said he wanted to anoint someone, which he quickly did. I think there was a sense that he couldn't really follow through on that. He picked someone who barely got any votes running for alderman once some years ago, and that didn't intimidate anybody. There's a jillion candidates. Some of them are fairly well funded. Several of them have a lot of endorsements. So, among them, you're talking about people like Alderman Pat Dowell, who's been in the council for about 15 years now, having defeated Dorothy Tillman, who was one of the fixtures in the council for many years. Another one that I would watch out for is John Swain. I knew him when he was working for, a lot of people aren't talking about this now, but he worked for Richard M. Daley when I met him, and I was covering City Hall in the aughts, some 15 or 20 years ago. He was working in intergovernmental affairs, which is sort of this kind of top secret branch of the mayor's office that interacts with the different branches of government and with the city council, and kind of is the political arm of the mayor within City Hall. So, he's someone that has some deep roots, although not really publicly prominent. So I've heard the comparison made to the race when Rahm Emanuel on the other side of town, on the north side, when he left, and they had the mayor's machine at the time was weak, and there was nobody that really was that strong. So somebody, namely Mike Quigley, who's still there, won with 22%.
Who was a Cook County commissioner at the time, so he had a base.
He had a base, but there were other candidates with more money and more institutional support.
But you brought up the thing, again, professional tip when you watch Tuesday night. Do we all agree that the winner of the 1st Congressional District primary, it could be, you get the nomination, a plurality win, it could be as small as 21 to 24%. And in that heavily Democratic district, which stretches from parts of the South Side to near Kankakee, you are going to win the November election. What numbers do you think? I mean, 22, 24? I'd be shocked if it's more.
I'll take the under on 22.
Yeah.
I'll take the under.
I think it's confusing for
the only thing,
into.
And again, as we speak, Jonathan Jackson is trying to explain this crypto money. It is an independent expenditure, but boy, it's coming in for one person. Speaking of outside money, Illinois 3, where the main contenders are Alderman Gil Villegas and State Representative Delia Ramirez, who's a state from the North Side District. This is the new 3rd district. It was an open seat. It was created by the map makers in Springfield, the Democrats, to yield the 2nd Hispanic member of Congress from Illinois. And right now, as we speak, I checked the numbers last night. Speaking of outside money, there's about 13 groups that are playing there, totaling 2.7 million. But anyway, Mariah, I know you've looked a little bit about the race and you've been to a few events. What do you think might be the thing that will be a defining moment? What will this election turn on in Illinois 3?
Well, and on financials, 2.7 million is more than both candidates have raised
Yes.
on their own. I think Gil Vegas is leading financials with 900,000. Delia is at about 600,000. I think people I've spoken to say that turnout is going to be a big factor in this race. Obviously, with every election, that is the case. But this district stretches from Avondale and on the city's west side to all the way DuPage County, Bensonville.
Addison, Bensonville, Winfield, Bartlett, West
Thank you.
Chicago. I feel like I'm calling stops on the Metro stop. Glendale Heights.
Phillips old turf.
Yes, and in Chicago, Logan Square, Portage Park, Belmont, Cragen. Can I see your tickets, please?
And so I think both campaigns say around 70% of the electorate is going to be within the city. But I think neither of them want to ignore DuPage County and the more conservative voters in that area.
That's where Viegas. So this is also a proxy fight, not only locally, nationally. Ramirez does go in and is getting an enormous amount of this independent expenditure money from the furthest left elements of the Democratic Party. Some of these are allied with the so-called members of the squad. By the way, Congressman Jesus Chuy Garcia, who is backing Ramirez, is a part of that far left faction. Former Congressman Luis Gutierrez, who is a more moderate progressive, is backing Viegas. We're talking about people who are progressive. It's just who's further left here. But is your point that the race could be determined in these suburbs where Viegas is not known and Ramirez is not known? So they really are introducing themselves to voters at the first time. Thoughts? What do you think?
I mean, when you talk about the Latino vote, it's not just Pilsen and Little Village. The Latino community is enormous. That's why we have now 2 Latino districts in the state. And the suburbanization of Latinos, what I call the browning of the bungalow belt as well. Some of those neighborhoods you're talking about used to be what we would call white ethnic, right? Belmont Cragen, as well as some of the, and Portage Park, some of the other Northwest Side neighborhoods, increasingly Latino. Are those Latinos as far to the left as the ones in the original kind of enclaves? I don't think so. I think as people get more settled in the United States, become homeowners, they may become somewhat more conservative.
So what does this race say about Latino politics in Chicago? So we all know we just went through a big city hall battle to create more Hispanic wards. Alderman Viegas was the leader of that effort, and it did not succeed. But given that, and we don't have time to get into it, not only is this a proxy fight from the left and the super left, it is a proxy fight among different political elements here.
It's always been that. I mean, going back to when Daley was mayor, there was a Hispanic Democratic Organization, which were, basically
HDO.
his guys in the Latino community, or his effort to control the Latino vote and make sure that it didn't merge again with the black vote, as was the case with Harold Washington. That was the bulwark, was the Latino community. But you always had people further to the left, like Chuy Garcia, who was in the wilderness for many years because he was taken out by HDO. And Gutierrez was actually part of the beginning of Daley's machine, but gradually faded away and moved away from them. But you always have this tension, and it's not a monolith.
That is always, whenever we talk about the slicing and dicing of ethnic groups, racial groups in here, no matter what it is, we are such a diverse city that no one, these groups all have subsets or anything. So it's always smart not to think of any one base group will march lockstep. Now, the other big congressional race here is in a district called Illinois 6. This is the place where we have 2 Democratic incumbents running against each other. Freshman Congresswoman Marie Newman against Congressman Sean Casten. And this race is a little harder to talk about because tragically Sean Casten's 17-year-old daughter died just a few days ago, and it put the race in pause. There's also a lot of outside money in that race, and some of the bigger players followed the lead of the candidates there. I've written a lot about how Marie Newman has this ethics cloud hanging over her, having to do with an employment contract she gave to somebody in exchange for not running against her. Oh, by the way, that man is running in the 3rd district, Ayman Shahadi. So all stories kind of loop together here. I don't know. My thought was Sean Casten has raised a few million more than Marie Newman. The outside money is helping him. She's got plenty of endorsements. People have stuck with her. With this tragedy, I'm just not sure if it, where the dynamics may flow now. And certainly it takes the wind out of the heavy negative that was going against Newman at the end.
I saw that on TV today. I saw Marie Newman, an anti-Marie Newman ad. So it seems that they're back. I saw many pro Sean Casten ads, and today I saw an ad about her ethics baggage.
Okay.
So it seems to be like the critical ads are back days ahead of the
So-
primary. There was a little break.
It's still a district, too, that Sean Casten doesn't know very well. I mean, the huge swaths of the southwest suburbs are foreign to him. And so, I think it's I don't know if it's a toss-up race still. I mean, I think the needle points slightly to Casten, but I just think it's, of congressional races that I've been paying attention to, I think it's top of my list. I think it's just fascinating seeing these two, pair off against one another. And in a year when Democrats controlled redistricting in Illinois,
Yes.
two Democrats fighting one another.
And people said it did not have to happen, but the last minute change was to create that second Hispanic district, which threw everything up in the air on it. So that one, I just, we'll have to see. It will be, I have a sense there's a tilt toward, and also this is based on some other indicators I've seen. There's no heavy negative ads running against Casten. And that is to his advantage as he closes the campaign. And I think that negative ad you saw is probably, that's one paid by, all the negatives I think are paid by outside groups. So as we kind of close down here, we have two other items that I want to talk about. As we speak today, and Tina, I think you'll be covering this, Illinois big Democrats are in Washington, D.C., talking to the Democratic National Committee about making Illinois one of the early primary states. Everybody out there, enjoy this June weather that you have voting in a primary, because we're not going to see it again for at least a decade. We usually have a March primary in Illinois. It's cold. And then you have this really long general election season. Because the census was late, we have a June primary. So if Illinois doesn't get to be one of the first 4 or 5 states, we'll probably go back to the March date. And if we get the early primary, it will be in February. Will this change the dynamics of the Democratic, of the Democratic blue state if we go early and we become a presidential primary state?
I think we're gonna see more money in these races, which have already set so many records. Like J.B. Pritzker set a self-funding record in his gubernatorial campaign in 2018. So I think the longer the campaign cycle, the crazier numbers we'll see, and I think it will shift the way that people run and when they announce and how they campaign if we get the super early primary.
If we have it, because then we'll also be, one of the things I've envied my colleagues who work for papers in Wisconsin, they get, they have to sort out which presidential candidate wants to talk to them. Since 1992, Illinois has just elected Democrats. I don't know. Do we think professionally it'd be exciting to have Illinois in play as an early presidential state?
Yeah, why not? I mean, and this is all coming about too when you think about the disaster the Iowa caucuses were 2 years ago, where they just couldn't get their numbers straight, and it would give Illinois more prestige in picking the president. So I think it's nothing but a positive for the state of Illinois to be bumped up into that ranking, into that level if it happens. The idea that having our voters here have that ability to touch these candidates and listen to them personally is something that it energizes politics. It energizes interest in the process.
Yes.
And we're missing that. We haven't had that in a long
and it's
time.
a great civic education. I know when I've gone to Iowa and New Hampshire, the colleges are engaged, students are engaged, there's whole courses here. And one of the things I think that's really tough for voters, because everybody's busy, is you have all these races in front of you. And, people are going to vote. We haven't even touched really the Cook County races, the state rep, all the Illinois General Assembly races. There's a lot to go through on it. But I'm wondering if you have it, is there a sense as we close down a takeaway from this campaign season? One of mine would be, let me go first while you think, is that when you look at ads, if you read the small print, because if you want to know what's going on, you read this small print, because you have to, at least on a federal ad, say who paid for it. And if the name sounds too good to be true, like Citizens for a Better World, then it's probably a front for some special interest, because if it's not a name that tells you what's really going on, then something isn't what you think it is. I don't know, Dave, any lesson learned, anything you observed?
What my takeaway is, if we see Irvin collapse on election day politically, and we have Griffin moving out of the state of Illinois, I just think that J.B. Pritzker is probably just, delighting in the turn of events here, because the primary season for him will have been an enormous success. And for us political reporters, though, I think taking Griffin out of the picture is, Griffin and Pritzker, the tale of the two feuding billionaires, is like, it's a fun thing to cover and write about. Our elections potentially are going to be missing that conflict now. But
I think when we talk about normalizing crime and problems in our state and our city, we're seeing the normalizing of billionaires in Illinois buying races, essentially. So I think that is the biggest takeaway that I've seen, that as reporters, we've already been doing this, but we need to be very mindful of the influence of money on races and how there are no limits and how far that can go.
I think what I'll be looking for in election night, and what I'll actually be reporting on specifically, is what this primary says about the future of the Republican Party in the state. Is it the end of the road for the more moderate center-right Republicans in this state if the Griffin slate gets swept and loses across the board? Is it going to be a party now that is completely a Trumpist party more than it is like the traditional conservative, fiscally conservative and more socially centrist Republican Party that we grew up with?
I think in that vein, it has been disappointing this election season to see these very familiar dynamics play out, this divisiveness of moderate Democrats, and it plays out in the governor's race specifically. In this case, where Democrats at the state level preying on the same fears and emotions of GOP voters, and you see that in the way that Democrats have funded ads against Richard Irvin. I think that has been disappointing and pretty not refreshing in this election season, and you see it in that race, I think, most prominently, but I think you could find examples elsewhere throughout the state as well.
4 smart takeaways. Our time has come to an end. I want to thank Dan, Tina, Dave, and Mariah for joining us on our WBEZ Sun Times political team. Now you get to know everybody who's on the team here. Find our emails, ask us about it. We'll try and answer if you have anything that you want to know. We want to be here to be helpful to you. And that was one of the points, I think, of our conversation, too. We know it, and we think you should, too. Joining me now is Fran Spielman, the Dean of the Chicago City Hall Press Corps and the host of the Fran Spielman Show, available wherever you get your podcast, and Mariah Woelfel, who is the WBEZ City Hall reporter. So welcome to the show. Let me set this up for everybody. You may wonder why we're talking about mayoral politics. because mayoral politics doesn't wait for a timely
It's
calendar.
the main event in Chicago always.
Yeah, so
What
just
other
so,
election is going on?
right. So
Is there
so-
another?
Yeah, I know.
let me just explain to everybody that it's run a different way. So we're talking to the days before the primary in Illinois, where voters have to go and decide, am I going to pull a Republican ballot, a Green Party ballot, a Republican ballot? As you two well know, and our viewers should know, when you vote for mayor in Chicago, it's nonpartisan. If on February 28th, 2023, one candidate gets more than 50%, game over. If not, the top two go to a runoff on April 4, 2023. So, Fran, my question is, why are so many people in this race right now?
Because they smell blood and water. Lori Lightfoot is sitting at 25%. She has to at some point get to 50%. That will be difficult. If she doesn't make a runoff with about 45% of the vote, she will be in trouble because normally everybody coalesces behind the challenger. If you don't have strong support and a lot of momentum going into that runoff as an incumbent, chances are she would
But
lose.
we're talking June something, okay? And you have so many people running. Mariah, what is, okay, here, let's let our viewers see.
Sure.
And here's one thing. What do you know already? And you two, everybody could be a pundit here. What is my one takeaway? Just by looking at this, the advantage that Lori Lightfoot has for all you've said, Fran, in hot water, low ratings. What do you see here, everybody? She is the one woman right now who's running. And that's now. But I haven't heard any other female names surface.
Sophia King,
Sophia King.
Okay, and
Alderwoman.
Stacey Davis from the Chicago Teachers Union.
Judy Friedland,
Or another
possibly.
CT
So
candidate,
that,
yeah.
as we look ahead,
Or Bridget Gaynor, the county commissioner, who
Okay,
took a pass
so-
last time.
Sure.
but that's the thing to be looking for as we hurl down here. Why are these people, though, of the ones who are running, why are they getting in now? What's the point?
Well, as the mayor puts it, it's another day, what did she say? Another day,
Yeah.
another man that thinks he can do his job better
Another
than
man
me.
who thinks
Yeah.
But
so
a lot
far.
of issues are plaguing the city right now. You have rising violence. We're coming off the end of a pandemic, and people are jumping on that, saying that they can, do a better job in the city of Chicago.
Okay, so here's the thing. Lightfoot, as of now, in her main campaign fund, has cash on hand of $1.7 million.
That's paltry.
Hold
Think
on,
about
hold on. Let me make my point, Fran. In her other campaign fund, which is Chicago Forward, it's just 50,000 something as of April. Just in the last few days, she took in 100,000. Everybody, all these people combined, except for Willie Wilson, who's self-funding, and we'll get to him, have nothing. Okay.
Okay, but remember something. Rahm Emanuel had at this point $8 million. He had the ability and the Rolodex and the contacts to get a six-figure
Right.
donation in 5 seconds.
None of these people could do that.
Lori Lightfoot is not getting that, and she's having some trouble
Well,
raising
hold
money
on.
among the
Wait, it's all-
institutional
But
interests.
Fran and Mariah, it's all comparable. She's got 1.7 million. They've got nothing. Okay.
At the moment,
At
yes.
the
Right.
moment, none of them have any fundraising power. And, Jamal Green just filed his papers a few weeks ago. Alderman Lopez, he took a $40,000 loan from his 15th ward campaign fund. Cam Butner, the state representative, he took a loan from he's using some money from his state rep fund. So let me get to Willie Wilson. Willie Wilson gets in the news because he spends money, the gas giveaway or that. Mariah, is this a plan to become mayor? He's tried it for Senate. He's tried it before. Can he just ride this to February, giving away money to people who might not even be voters in Chicago?
Well, he was successful last time in taking a lot of the African American vote
But
away.
he didn't win. Yeah.
He won 13 of 18 black wards.
13 of 18 black wards, and then use that support to throw it behind Lightfoot, which he will not obviously
Yes.
be doing, even if he doesn't make the runoff this election cycle. So
Interesting point about Willie Wilson, everybody.
He is a force to be reckoned
Yes.
with. He will take votes from Lori Lightfoot. Remember something. Lori Lightfoot is not the reformer that a lot of people wanted her to be. Therefore, she will not get the lakefront vote as in the strength that she had last time. Therefore, she must make it up somewhere else. Where's it going to come from? It's going to come from, she hopes, the Black community, except that with Willie Wilson in the race, she has a problem.
Well, cast of thousands. Go on.
just on finances too, Lightfoot with the most in the bank right now, $1.7 million in her accounts. But I still don't think you've seen big major donors throw their weight in this race yet.
You're thinking in Chicago area. Okay. I also cover Lori Lightfoot. I'm based in Washington, D.C., if everyone doesn't know it. I see her on a national play, and I've seen her national fundraising. She does have a national network that even if it's not, no one can compare to Rahm Emanuel, ambassador to Japan, who was just back in Chicago as a few days ago. The point being, Rahm is, let's do a carve out. No one's going to raise money like him. I think my point is the money advantage she has right now, she could use it to do something that no one else can. Fran, what should she be doing since she has money that no one else has?
Well, I think you have to measure it not against Rahm, but measure it against what she needs to reverse the standing of 25%. She needs probably $8 million.
I just am going to disagree with you only because everything's proportional. Right now, none of these guys except Willie Wilson has money, and Willie Wilson only seems to use it to give away money to people who might not even be Chicago voters.
In all deference to Willie Wilson, let's say he has had a lifetime of philanthropy and giving. He takes money out of his own pocket for a homeless guy before he ever ran for anything. So let's not say that this is buying votes only. This is a man who, right?
Yeah, I would agree.
Hold on, I'm not denying the philanthropy. I'm saying he's not mayor and he's not senator and he's not president. He ran for all three of those things.
Right.
Interesting Willie Wilson thing. Let me throw it out there. He directly is trying to defeat Mayor Lightfoot because he is running against her. He is the biggest donor and backer of Richard Boykin, who's running against Tony
Who runs his
Preckwinkle for
campaign and arranges his news conferences.
Right. So Willie Wilson is trying to take out directly Mayor Lightfoot, indirectly Tony Preckwinkle.
Which is an interesting point. Tony Preckwinkle is going to get involved in this mayor's race. You know darn well that she is not going to back Lori Lightfoot. Who do you think it'll be?
Pick one. Okay, guys. So let's see. Will it be
Sawyer? Probably.
Sawyer.
Sawyer.
I would see Sawyer. Yeah.
Where's Sawyer?
There he is.
There he is.
Okay.
Right there
Bottom.
in front of you.
Yep. There you go.
Son of Mayor
Eugene Sawyer.
Eugene Sawyer.
Yes.
Okay. Paul
If he
Vallis.
stays in, he
Okay,
has a
you don't
likely
think he will?
chance. Well, he could, but
Sawyer hasn't even formally announced yet. He hasn't made a formal announcement.
Right,
of course
right.
he's running, but yes.
Right. But he would be the most likely to attract Tony Preckwinkle's support or Sophia King if she gets it.
Both known as, pragmatic progressives with strongholds in the Black community on the South Side.
Do you think there's anyone out there who is the biggest influencer who could help Lori Lightfoot become more popular? Is there anyone out there? Is there anything? We do have problems. Everybody, you don't need me to tell you the problems.
I think this is going to be an election about it's a referendum on her. Mm-hmm. Just as she came out of nowhere to take the mantle because Tony Preckwinkle's contribution achieved at the Burke home, $10,000 was put into the Burke indictment, and the Sun-Times front page endorsement helped Lori Lightfoot emerge from a pack of all kinds of people, 14 people. Somebody will emerge from this field and be the primary challenger. That person will then get institutional money, perhaps, and that person will be in the runoff, and then the question will be, can Lori Lightfoot go into a runoff with a head of steam enough to win, or will it be an anybody but Lori Lightfoot election? My suspicion is that a lot of people have made up their minds about Lori Lightfoot now, and they are looking for an alternative.
Okay, so who would you be looking for to get in the race that's not in? First Fran, then Mariah.
It could be Pat Quinn, who is doing this recall thing that he
Yeah.
did 4 years ago under Ron.
Former governor.
It could be Gary Chico. It could be Bill Conway, who ran for state's attorney. It could be Sophia King. It could be Bridget Gaynor,
My
the
point
county
is that
commissioner.
The more competitors, they just don't.
No,
they just
somebody,
chop up
I
the
just said,
opposition.
someone will emerge from this field to become
To be the one, to
the
be the
primary
one.
challenger, just as Lori Lightfoot did.
Okay, Mariah, last word as we end this segment.
I think Sophia King would be an issue for the mayor. As we talked about, she is the only woman and Black woman in this race, and she's used that refrain a lot so
I
far.
remind people she is.
Sophia King is leader of the Progressive Caucus in the City Council, Southside Alderwoman.
What ward is she, guys?
She's 4th Ward.
Okay, South
The
Side.
Tim Evans ward,
We
the
go
old
back.
Tim Evans ward.
So Sophia King would be a challenge. I would like to see Chewy Garcia throw his name
Oh,
in
he's
the
not going to
race.
run.
I know.
That's the
I'm putting it out
No,
there.
no. We've been to this rodeo before.
It would be
Huey
fun.
Garcia is not going to
No.
run for mayor. Anyway, Franny, you seem like you're about to say
Most
something.
elections, Lynn, and you know this, are about an incumbent who has become unpopular and people are searching for an alternative. That's what's going on
We've
today.
been through this with Jane Byrne.
Yes.
We know Fran and I have been around. So we've seen this.
Longer than
phenomenon.
we'd like to admit.
Well, we've seen this phenomenon. Somebody who comes in who could have been, we thought, mayor for life. And then look what happens. Anyway, we got to wrap up this segment of At the Table. Thank you, Fran Spielman. And from WBEZ, City Hall reporter Mariah Woelfel. Thank you for joining us.
Great
Take
to
care.
have you as a partner.
Yeah, that's fun. It's fun.
Thanks, everybody. At the Table, brought to you by the Chicago Sun-Times. Digital subscriptions, only $2.49 a month. You get everything in the print newspaper, we call it the e-paper, plus every digital offering. Go to suntimes.com/subscribe.